All right, now so on a shorter time frame, generally those are all going to start with the chart, just because it's really hard to find bigger moves just strictly through flow on a shorter time frame, especially when volatility is heightened because those spreads get so big. It's really hard to figure out what's going on. But let's say we wanted to pull up our 20 bagger filter here. We'll go flow feed, and we'll go 20 bagger filter just to find some wild stuff. Where is it? There it is. So with the 20 bagger filter, this is, what I like to find for ridiculous moves. But there's some rules associated with it, obviously, stuff that hasn't run a ton already in the general direction, stuff that doesn't have zero bid. That's a huge red flag. If there's a zero bid, it's always marked at the ask, even if it's not actually at the ask and it's someone selling to open, which is really common because it's like if you own, 100 shares of a stock and you're able to get filled on, covered calls that are ridiculously far out of the money, that's pretty much free money. So you'll see those a lot on calls, especially those zero bid orders where there's no buyers at the spread. So take note of that. But generally, if you're going to find some of these further out of the money contracts, it's something on a shorter time frame that I'll usually start with the chart. So you always want to look for those bigger patterns that are higher confidence, like I've outlined in some other lessons. So like head and shoulders, diamond top, diamond bottom, inverse head and shoulders. Those are definitely my favorite high conviction patterns. So let's just scroll through real quick so we can find any good ones. So Lulu, no, blanking. Does Netflix still have? Oh, let's see if actually Spot had one on. Okay, yes, this is still sort of valid. So we'll dive into Spot here. So we see somewhat of a inverse head and shoulders setting up here. To make it cleaner, I might want to see it just, cleanly sell down here and close an hourly at 534.68. That would be optimal. That area just to make a super clean inverse head and shoulders. So one more leg down, and then we would want to see, okay, interesting. If we want to get an early entry and we see the right shoulder forming here at the lows, let's say it's sold down, it's down here, and we want to kind of front run this breakout. So instead of waiting, generally, the rule is that you should wait until you get back up to the neckline here, and then once that breaks, you're good to go. But let's say we want to front run it a bit and see what's going on. So we can come in here, we'll go into Spot, and we'll take a look at what's going on here. So right off the bat, we see some calls selling. And keep in mind this would look a lot different if we were at the low of the right shoulder here. So we'll see some call selling, call buying, put selling, put buying. So it's a little bit all over the place. But we can also look at the specific strikes that people are getting on puts to see, can we ride some puts down for this potentially to play out into that right-hand shoulder, which I would usually just ignore and go for a bigger setup, but we can take a peek here. So we got 550p weeklies. Nothing too crazy. This is not a great stock to look at options for because it does not get a ton of volume. It's more of just passive investor money, but right off the bat, so we see some getting hit at the open. Those look good throughout the entire day. Looks like they've just kind of been sitting there in profit, haven't done anything. Nothing too decisive on the days before. So could be a closeout here from prior sold to open. Either way, it is bearish. So, okay, 550's gotten some nice flow for this week. Interesting. 650C seller. Okay, so we can start to look at, what's expected here. So 550 by this Friday. They paid, on average $5 this morning. So 545 would be the target once again. So we need 545 by Friday right there. So this is what they would be looking for on Friday right there. And we can even draw that line here right off the open. Boom. So that's the path they're looking for it to take. You know, and then if it cuts below here, you can even set up an alert right here on the shoulder. Sometimes I'll do that. I'll just throw a alert here, and we'll go boom, click, add. I don't know what's going on, but normally you just add an alert, you set the price for it, and then you'll get a notification when it does hit that price. So that's what we'll be watching, and we'll watch for that right shoulder to fill out, and then we'll want to see some super bullish flow coming in, preferably long dated, because this is usually a pattern that's higher confidence on the longer time frame as opposed to shorter time frame. But you do get some really good moves on the shorter time frame out of it once it does actually break out of that neckline.